Hello again. Welcome to our webinar, Don't Get Caught Off Guard, Navigating Vulnerability Management under the Cyber Resilience Act. My name is Andreea Scarlat. I'm a Senior Cybersecurity Coordinator at the Romanian National Cybersecurity Directorate, and I will be your host and moderator for today's session. This webinar is organized under the Cyber Resilience Act Artificial Intelligence Project. It is an initiative funded through the Digital Europe program. It is designed to support SMEs and micro SMEs in understanding and preparing for the upcoming CRA requirements. Today, we will focus on one of the most important parts of the Cyber Resilience Act, vulnerability management obligations, and what organizations need to do to get ready for this. We also have an excellent lineup of speakers. And before we begin, let me introduce our speakers and walk you a bit through today's agenda. Okay, we will begin with a short introduction of the CRA-AI project, followed by an overview of the readiness assessment tool, the first component designed to help SMEs understand their current alignment with CRA requirements. Presented by myself. As I already mentioned, I work at the DNSC and I coordinate the European and international projects and programs directorate. And I'm also the project manager of the CRA-AI on the DNSC side. Next, we will move to the CRA-AI Early Adopter Program. It will be presented by Moreno Buffalo, CRA specialist at CyberCert Labs. Moreno will explain us how organizations can join the program, how to participate in dedicated workshops and gain early hands-on experience with the CRA-AI platform, and of course, contribute directly to shaping the roadmap and upcoming features. After the core part of today's session will be delivered by Angelo D'Amato, founder of Vulnir, and experienced cybersecurity expert with a strong background in vulnerability management and regulatory compliance. Angelo will guide us through the key vulnerability handling obligations introduced by Cyber Resilience Act and discuss what organizations should start preparing in terms of processes, coordination, and response capabilities. After Angelo's presentation, we will move into an initial Q&A segment where Conor McGovern, the CTO of CyberCert Labs and also the coordinator of the CRA-AI consortium, will join Angelo to address a set of important questions. This session aims to give you a clear view of what the CRA requires when it comes to vulnerability management, what needs to be in place and why these obligations matter. We will also look at the internal processes organizations should prepare, from identifying the evaluating vulnerabilities to coordinating remediation and reporting. We will also highlight how the CRA-AI readiness assessment and the early adopter program can support SMEs by offering early guidance and practical experience with the tools we are developing in our project. Overall, the purpose is to give you concrete and actionable steps that will help you align with the vulnerability handling practices with the expectation of the CRA. By the end of this session, we hope you will have a much clearer picture of what the CRA actually requires when it comes to the vulnerability management. We will break down the key obligations and explain what they mean in practice for organizations placing digital products on the EU market. You will also gain insights into recommended approaches for handling vulnerabilities throughout the product lifecycle, from identifying and assessing them to coordinating remediation and ensuring proper reporting. We will then look at what organizations can start preparing internally, the processes, coordination points, and capabilities that need to be in place in order to meet the CRA expectations. And finally, you will hear how the CRA readiness assessment that I already told you about before and the early adopter program can support SMEs by helping them understand their current level of preparedness and to give them early access to the tools we are developing within the project. So why should you be interested in the CRA? First, because the regulation is approaching real fast and because it's comprehensive. And if your business makes or sells digital products in the European Union, then there's a good chance it might affect you. Second, because the stakes are really high, non-compliance can result in fines or loss of market access. But more than that, there's a reputational risk and an operational disruption. Because the CRA is not just a legal box to check, it's about building trust with your customers, ensuring your products are secure from the ground up. Let me now really short introduce you the project behind this webinar. This is a Europe-wide collaboration bringing together cybersecurity experts, public agencies, and SMEs themselves to simplify the CRA compliance. The goal is to remove as much of the complexity, uncertainty, and cost as possible and to replace it with practical AI-supported tools that can guide SMEs through this process. About the consortium partners, we have CyberCert Labs, which is the project coordinator and also leads the development of the CRA-AI platform. Then we have Refracted Security, which focuses on improving vulnerability management and integrating secure code analysis and penetration testing. Then we have NRD Cybersecurity, which is acting as a pilot SME, testing the platform with 2 real-world products to validate its effectiveness. And then it's us, the National Cybersecurity Directorate, or shorter DNSC. We lead the communication efforts, including webinars like this one. And also we engage with stakeholders across Europe. And last but not least, we have Red Alert Labs, which supports the pilot phase and helps define the technical artifacts needed for success of CRA conformity assessments. Each of the partners bring real-world experience to this platform, practical, tested, and aligned with actual CRA needs. Okay, before moving to the readiness assessment, which is a very important tool that we developed within the project, I will present you real quick the scope assessment, which is basically the first step before completing the readiness assessment. In order to know whether you need to complete the readiness assessment or not, you firstly have to find out if you're in scope of cyber resilience act or not. So we have this free tool on our website. You will also receive the presentation after, and you can check the link from here. And by completing it, you find out whether you're in scope of cyber resilience act or not. And then another tool, the readiness assessment, which is a quick and accessible way for SMEs to understand how prepared they are for the upcoming requirements of the Cyber Resilience Act. It is an online assessment that takes around 30 minutes and provides a clear report showing your current level of alignment with CRA expectations. You will also receive a breakdown of potential gaps, together with practical recommendation on what needs to be improved. We think that for SMEs, this is a very useful starting point, especially if you don't have yet an internal process for CRA compliance. And as you see in the presentation, we provide the free access codes for SMEs who want to use this tool. So after the session, feel free to reach out to the email attached, Darius, or someone from my team. If you can also put in chat the address, it would be great. And we will give you a code and some explanation of what you have to do. Okay, that was all from me. Now I will give the floor to Moreno. So he will tell you more about the early adopter program that we have. Moreno?
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining our webinar today. As it was mentioned before by Andrea, our project goal is to build a platform that is called Attestra, that will use AI features to help the manufacturers to align with the European Cyber Resilience Act. On January 2026, we will start our early adopters program. So with this program, we want to accelerate the development and adoption of the Attestra platform, working directly with you that are the manufacturers, the people that's really interested by this legislation. The program will help us to create a user-centric platform that meets your needs and validate core features and usability before the final full public release. As this is a regulation that is impacting a very wide number of industries, it's important for us to have your feedback and your support and help because you are working across such industries. So you will have the opportunity to participate in dedicated workshops that will allow you to understand, for example, how to understand if your product are in scope for the legislation, how to perform a product decomposition and a risk assessment, and how to handle and reporting vulnerabilities. These workshops will be hands-on workshops, so practical and designed to prepare you to your journey for compliance. By participating, you will have the option to have access to early access to platform features, direct input into the roadmap, and exclusive offers, including free trials. Now, of course, to participate, you must be in scope for the CRA and commit to provide feedback and attend the workshop that we'll organize. Here, you can find the link by even the presentation that will be shared with you, where you can express your interest for the early adopters program. Thank you. Of course, I hope you will join us so that we can build together a platform. Our goal is not to build a platform that is just a simple checklist platform, but we want to create something that is really with the AI features helping your productivity in getting compliance for your products. So thank you again. And now I will pass the presentation to our guest, Angelo D'Amato, that will speak to you about vulnerability management under the European Cyber Resilience Act.
Thank you so much. So I think that everything is in order. So I share the screen with the presentation. And also for the invite, and it's very great also to see how CRA-AI and other Digital Europe program projects were founded to support the SME in automatizing and of course to guide the implementation of the CRA. So, and I'm very, very honored to be here. And today the focus of the discussion will be on the vulnerability handling. And after my presentation, that will be at least around 20 minutes, I will be happy to go through your question and answer with Connor. So thank you so much. And let me just start for who of you that doesn't know me. I am the rapporteur for the within the Sense Working Group 9 for Project Team 2, that is the generic security requirement for CRA, and then the Project Team 3, that is the vulnerability handling requirement standard. I am also today to provide you with the latest update vulnerability handling requirement standard. All my activities are founded by ESME, as you can see in this slide, and the European Innovation Council. And this is the reason why you can see this in every slide, and so is also worth noted this. So my work is possible also thanks to this funding related to the project called Stand for CR, that is funding not only me, but also the other rapporteur for vertical and horizontal for the same goal of creating the harmonized standard for the CRA. This is the agenda of today. So I will start with setting up a little bit of the context, just to on CRA and vulnerability handling. I will give you some update of what happened in these days on the vulnerability handling. This standard will be called, can we mute? So yes, please, in the call, try to mute yourself. And so this is helping also for having a smooth webinar. Thank you so much for the collaboration. The second point is the update on vulnerability handling. The standard will be has a code 40,000-1-3. You saw it before that there were the first horizontal standard that was delivered, the -1-2, that is the principle for cybersecurity for CRA. And there is also the vocabulary that has been released in a public inquiry. And then I will show it to you some timeline, and we will have the most important part of this, that is the question and answer part. So let's go to the meet here. So we will set up the context that the European Commission is always showing, that is showing you what are the main obligations of CRA that you need to satisfy while you are complying with the CRA. I find this very condensed and very straightforward, where there are the main building block of the CRA. That is all risk-based. So risk assessment is the main component that you should have in place. We have, of course, a set of requirements related that you need to implement, and all the vulnerability handling that will be the topic of today, along with the conformity assessment. And this needs to be happening all into the design and development. You need to have a shift-left approach where you the requirement and then you have everything set it up and in place. And it's not a case that you will have also vulnerability handling requirement there, because all the coordinated vulnerability disclosure, all the updates mechanisms that you need to set up needs to happen into the design. You cannot think about that after you place on the market your product. You need to know that the vulnerability handling requirements are activated from when you place the product on the market until all the full support period, and that you don't mix up the vulnerability handling requirement that is with the reporting obligation that you can find also in another section where it's speaking about actively exploitable vulnerability and severe incident. This is a part of incident handling that is a little bit separated. Is related, but you need to consider as two separate elements that you need to have in place, because our vulnerability handling is more focused on mitigating and preventing that vulnerability are happening, and then and is more product related. Incident, you need to include also the organizational aspect and the readiness of your organization to respond to incident and then to report to incident. CRA, of course, is not here to set up a 100% security. It doesn't exist. And so if you see in the legal text is saying that the objective is minimizing security risk, preventing incident, minimizing their impact. If you are not prepared, you cannot deal with incident, and then you cannot prevent this incident. So this is the reason why you need to start from the design. This is a kind of slide where I want to provide you with some timelines. So you'll see highlighted what are the next steps. There is the implemented act, and more we are waiting for the technical guidance from the European Commission that is explaining how the product can fall in different categories. That is based on the main on the core functionality and other aspects that you need to consider, because there are products maybe that they implement also different features altogether. You can have a CM operating system all mixed up. So it's good that we are waiting for clarity that will happen, I hope in December, at the end of December, and we will have this technical guidance. The timeline for the horizontal standard is August 30 of August. For PT3, there was a little bit of a delay because we were, of course, a lot of important discussion regarding how to embed in our vulnerability handling a risk-based approach. And we will try to keep this deadline October, August 2026, but I will not be surprised if there is a 1-2 months of delay for the work. So let's see. So we need to see how things are moving up. We will receive from the public, but of course we will do best to keep this timeline, of course, because the vulnerability handling standard is critical also for the use within the horizontal, and is a stepping stone for all the handling of things. Let's not forget that in September 2026, there will be the reporting obligation. So if you have an actively exploited vulnerability, you have to report. This doesn't applies also before products that are placed on the market before 2026-27. Please be careful and have it ready. And don't wait last minute for being ready. The vertical standard, the timeline that is specified in the standardization request is October 2026. And we have the PT2, that the horizontal standard for product is on 2026, 20 October, but we are trying also to advance and to move ahead the definition of the standard. And so we will see also we are work how proceeding. And of course, as you are all aware, the applicability of CRA is 2027, December 11. Yeah. And the main message here is that the clock is ticking. So and don't wait until the last minute. I saw this for red, where a lot of manufacturers, they were in panic in August 2025 to implement all. Laboratory will be easy, and there will be scarcity of advisors that can support us. So act fast, act now, and start to think about what next step. I want just to remind you that within my activity founded by the Center for CR, there were also activity of dissemination. So here, I don't know if all of you are familiar, but I had a deep dive of 4 hours on the previous version of the vulnerability handling in July 2025 this year. So I'm suggesting to you to at least have a look to see how the standard was being developed. And so in this presentation, I have also the new status, at least the overview, the outline. Okay. The slide there are references, so when you will download, you can also click, and then you have your link. We have the I created this slide just to give you a kind of a high-level overview of what are the main essential requirements for the vulnerability handling part. And as you can see, you have the SBOM. You need to be able to identify vulnerability. You need to be able to remediate this vulnerability. You need to be able to do regular tests in a proactive way. So this is the reason why you have regular tests and regular review. You need to be able to inform your user and stakeholder about what are the fixed vulnerabilities that you had. You need to have, of course, CVD in place. And this is something that needs to improve also for manufacturers. So the coordinated vulnerability disclosure policy, that not all they have it at the moment. One of the effort was also done with the PSTI in UK with the regulation that is making mandatory the use of the CVD and for consumer devices. And then we have a mechanism to intake vulnerabilities. You need to have capability to receive vulnerability report from security. You need to have a secure distribution of it. You need to be able to, if there is an error, to fix. You cannot place on the market a 100% secure product, and so you need to be able to have a secure update mechanism to be able to fix when there is some issue. And then you need to make available update free of charge, and there is all the things that are in, and you need to have all the dissemination of this vulnerability. I want to make you other notes. So I speak people, this is not clear. The standard that we are writing is not a cut and paste of the when you are using the RMID standard that we are writing, you need to look also at the law. So most of the component we are not including in our standard. For example, we will not copy and paste the obligation of the reporter. We are not copy and reporting obligation. You need to have both. You cannot really only look at the RMID standard and things that you are okay. I heard this for red for 18,031. There are people that are just looking at 18,031, and they are saying that risk assessment is optional, is not there, and so on. And then I want to make sure that framework. So you have the NLF framework, CRA legislation, and the standard. The standard is a technical interpretation legislation, but you as a manufacturer, you need to oblige and with the law. Okay, the RMID standard is only a technical means to your objective. So just to clarify, for most of you is clear, but I want just to make sure that this is covered. The second part that I want to show you is what are the new updates on the vulnerability handling. The standard will be 40,000-1-3. This is still to be released in public inquiry. It will be released or today or tomorrow, maximum next week, because now we finish the draft. We hand over to the CCNC from Sensenelec. Now they are doing the last quality check consistency, and then there will be the passage, or they will be moved to the next step, that is the formal public inquiry, where there will be 12 weeks. We will see the timeline later. I will also update you on specific timeline. I want just now to focus on the main part. So if you saw my deep dive in June, you have this similar slide with how it was the status at the time, and now you see what is the status now. As you can see, there is the main component that we added is the applicability. The applicability we introduce to have a risk-based approach for the vulnerability handling. It sounds strange, but you know there are two components that you need to consider where you are having vulnerability handling activities. So you need to the vulnerability may be critical and may impact on your product. And what do? You go faster. You solve fast that. But there is another component that is another variable that is the impact of your product. A smart toothbrush that has a vulnerability is different from a router that has a vulnerability. And some level requirement needs to have less or more rigor of implementation. This concept we integrated in what you see now written as applicability. Is not so now there is a discussion. We will see also the member state what they think about it, and so we are really looking forward for having input for this approach and understanding what makes sense and how we can calibrate to have a reasonable approach for all the market, also to address the limitation, and then of course of the SME, small medium enterprise in general, and to make sure that our standard is not a burden for the market. So because what we want to have is something that is feasible and implementable and proportional for the market. And this we need your help, that you are participating into the inquiry process and you will and your review and your input. Now the other steps are not a surprise. We have preparation. You need to prepare. You need to have all the vulnerability handling and CVD in place, and so on. And this can happen during the design. Then you have also the receipt, the verification, remediation, release, and post-release. That are all the vulnerability handling activities that are more operational in terms of receiving the vulnerability. You need to receive from external. You need to actively monitoring the vulnerability. You need to actively test for vulnerability in a regular and effective view. Then you need to verify this vulnerability, remediate, release, and then there is the post-release, that is the lesson learned, root cause analysis, and so on. This is just an outline. I cannot go more in details for that, but at least you have a kind of touch of what is expected in this new standard, and you will have it read when it will go in the public inquiry. This is another slide that is just showing you the vulnerability lifecycle, and this is also I included also into the draft standard. Now we will see how to refine this, but this is just a copy and paste from the state of vulnerability of 2018. You can click the link and you can go, but here I just reported for simplicity and just to say that I have a vulnerability. This vulnerability you can discover in many ways. One, that there is on the top that you patch directly when there is a reporter that is coming to you and say, hey, I have a vulnerability, can you check and try to fix? And so there is no even exploit and so on, public exploit. You have the vulnerability discovery that maybe you have your internal, that you have a researcher that is coming to you and they have this vulnerability. The first line is when you tested yourself, okay? And then we have the last step that there is some incident, there is an exploit, is a known vulnerability at a certain point, and you need also to speed up the resolution. Of course, we cannot skip the prioritization to understand your product. You cannot skip the assessment that you need to have and the reporting part that is also key for reporting of actively exploitable vulnerability, and remediate, verify that the remediation is working as expected. If not, you need to go back to the cycle. And of course, while the risk at the beginning, we expected that when you have a patch, the risk is lowering down while going up to this chain. And this is the main message that is also in the document from. I want to go through where we are now. Also important. I think that most of you are about the timeline. Okay. Today is 27. I did a mistake to be submitted for formal vote. Is to be submitted query. I will fix the slide later. So it means that in the formal public inquiry, from the public inquiry, be 12 weeks. So where the HAS consultant will provide his feedback, and then we will have also the national standardization body that will provide in this. The 12 weeks will end the beginning of March, and then we can start we can restart the process to have the common resolution period. Then, depending on how many comments we will receive, we can better estimate how much time we need, 1 month, 2 months. So I imagine that there will be a lot of comments, even though we solved a lot of issues. We had we have all the dispatch. We hope that it is happening, if not earlier. But like I said, so just to repeat very quickly, so we have the dispatch of to inquiry, that is the 30.99 is the code of this stage. You can look into the internal regulation of Sensenec to see what does it mean really that, and what is the formal process. There are a lot of training from Sam, you can see, but what you need to know is that the standard will go to public inquiry between today and next Monday, max, and the document is in the hand of CCMC for the final quality check. The public inquiry will last for 12 weeks, and this will involve the comment from the house that we already solved in the previous cycle, but there will be new comments to see how we can refine as consultant, and then we will have the comment from the national standardization body, and all the process will end in the beginning of March to count the 12 weeks while that are needed. Then we have the comment resolution period. We will see how many comments we will receive and the difficulty of how to solve many comments, because many of the comments will need a lot of attention, a lot of time, a lot of discussion, and we hope to reach the dispatch for the formal vote within June. And we will try our best to be within the deadline, and of course to be published at the same time in August 2026, and I hope that there is no delay. But really, we cannot predict, because we need to understand what is happening after the public inquiry and how many comments we will receive on the document itself. So, and now we are in the question and answer part, and I'm opening if you have any other questions or details that we can go through. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
sorry
Angelo.
for the audio.
Yeah. Connor, you can take the stage. I see that we have a lot of questions already.
We do indeed. So we'll get straight to the questions. If anybody's got questions, there's a Q&A section at the top of the screen. If you just click in there and type your questions in there, and we'll start to go through them in the order in which they were posted. So first question from Basile. I think this one is for me. It's can you provide some clear examples where and how AI will be integrated in the platform? Certainly. So sticking with vulnerability management, when a external entity reports a vulnerability through the Attestor platform to you as a user of the platform, the AI will do an initial triage. It will look at things like the completeness of the vulnerability report. Does it have all the relevant information? If it does, what kind of severity might this vulnerability be initially rated at? So it can sort of get that initial triage workflow going that Angelo showed earlier. Into the future, knowledge extraction. So sometimes you get manufacturer's notes in PDF format and non-machine readable format, and being able to actually upload that into the platform, and for the AI to extract knowledge about the components and the guidance from the manufacturer. Moving on to Jarmila, this one's for you, Angelo. Regular tests, does it have to be penetration testing, or can the manufacturer decide the form of vulnerability testing?
Yeah, so actually we have an activity that is called penetration test plan, that you need to plan the activity. You cannot really go and depend. The level of testing and the activity that are required, it relates to the risk of your product, of course, like I said before. So maybe the level of a testing that you are having for a toothbrush is different from a level of a router, is different for a level and deepness of other tests. So if you know, if you are looking also to 62443, they have also a penetration test. They have different level of penetration tests. So it really depends from the context. But beyond a basic vulnerability assessment that is actually done with the tools, I expect a little bit a minimum also of penetration test manual activities, even for lower critical devices. Otherwise, you need to justify why you are not doing it. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Angelo. Simona asks, is there any restriction in terms of tools and platforms used for SBOM and vulnerability management? Asking as we have quite a plethora of tools in our DevSecOps pipelines and processes, which is not unusual. Simona, I see that a lot. Is it sufficient to have the vulnerability management process in place, or do manufacturers need to adopt any specific tool or platform?
Absolutely. So no, I think that it's a good question, but I want to make it clear in the harmonized display standard we are technological agnostic. You will never see in any harmonized standard any reference to technological element, if not in a guidance element. So you can use any tool and any platform. What we are looking is at the goal. We are not looking at how you do it specifically. We are giving you some guardrail with what requirement you need to in place and things that market surveillance can look at, but a market surveillance cannot really ask you for specific tools and so on. We are technological agnostic, so you need to consider, you need to check what is what fits your need and what how you can satisfy the requirement of CRA.
Yeah, I think kind of that's an important point, Angelo, because you conform to the CRA rather than comply. So it's not a prescriptive thing. It's left up to each manufacturer to decide what's best for them. Next question from Corey. To what level does SBOM generation need to go?
Yeah, I think that there is another good question, and this is more related to a risk-based approach. What is written into the law, into the Annex 1, Part 2, is that you need to consider at least the top level. So it's all the main components that are making your own product. But maybe that is not enough for a more critical product. And so this is the reason why we have different level of implementation. We have something that we called in our standard the requirement enhancement. So the manufacturer, they need to do their applicability study to understand based on their risk assessment what level is reasonable for their product. And that is a risk-based approach. We cannot say that one fits all. And this is the reason why we introduce applicability. There were a lot of discussion about that. We need to check what are the comments that we will receive during the public inquiry. But yes, it's a good question and very contentious, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Angelo, I think there's some guidance around SBOMs coming from the Commission at some point in the future. I think they mentioned that at the conference.
Yeah, there will be, but it will be next year. And I think that you saw it, the study that they publish. So they are asking that there is a kind of questionnaire that they push online that you can answer to that question. So please, if you want to contribute, answer to that questions, because that question will go to the report that ENISA will do next year, and I hope Q1, Q2. So I don't know when there is the deadline for that. But yeah, that is a good contribution that will help to add the clarity. But in the meanwhile, you have the CISA documentation, you have BSI, you have all the reference that you can refer. Don't wait for the guidance. So start to do something now. I mean, for manufacturers that they want to have the first steps.
Yeah, great. Next one from Corey. I think you've answered this already. When will EN 40,000/1/3 go to public review? I think that's tomorrow or the day after, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty soon.
We are just waiting for the latest quality check, consistency check for CCMC, and yeah, it's really question of 1-2 days, something like that, and maximum next week. I don't know. So it's very soon. For sure, there will be a LinkedIn post, public source, and so on. Everything will be communicated as soon as it happens. Thank you.
Nice. One more from Corey. If an organization is already part of a PSIRT, does this satisfy the CRA requirements? I'm not familiar with what PSIRT is.
Product Security Incident Response. It's just so you can have PCIRT, you can have CCIRT, you can have anything in place. And this is also referenced by the 30,111 and the other. The fact it's good that you have organizational, you can have a team that is taking in charge, but a team needs to be governed. You need to have policy and procedure in place. You need to make sure that people, they know what to do, when to do it, and which level of details they need to go. So yeah, of course, it depends. What do you mean? The fact that is existing a PCIRT is not enough per se, if there is not the infrastructure around and the requirements that needs to satisfy. Yeah.
Right. Let's see. how does the vulnerability management process of the CRA align with the one that we must implement for NIS2, DORA, and EUCC? Is the process explained here compliant with all of these regulations and standards?
Yeah, I think that this is regarding the interplay. So you have, for example, DORA for financial, then you NIS2, you have for NIS2, you have it for critical infrastructure, important and critical element organization. But you cannot have a secure infrastructure if you don't have the product that are in this infrastructure secure. And here is where CRA is coming into place. CRA is focusing on product security and a process around product security. NIS is about the organizational aspect, and then you can see that there is a kind of alignment between CRA with the reporting of actively exploited vulnerability, and also for NSA, the DORA, that you have the same requirements. And then there is ENISA that is working on creating the single reporting platform, the EU database, the EU Cyber Solidarity Act. Please have a look at that, because that is also putting all together. And so there is also the omnibus digital package that is going there to organize and to align all the things. I will not really comment on that and go into details, but yeah, there is a lot to say, but the alignment there is, and there is in the terms that I explained. CRA product requirement, and of course you need to have maybe a PCF that is checking at the product, understanding that there is a vulnerability, but you need to have all the organizational process to make sure that they work together, and then you secure an organization end to end, not only from product perspective, but also organizational level. Yeah, hopefully that I answered the question.
Yes, and I think it's important that we're moving towards a single reporting platform with a single set, and NISA is driving that. And just to say, yeah, the CRA on one hand and NIS2 and DORA on the other hand, one is product security and the other is operational security. They kind of go together. So if we have more secure products, less vulnerabilities in our networks, therefore that lightens the load on NIS2 and DORA, in that it should shrink the attack surface. That's sort of the goal of how they play together. Just to say, I put a link into the survey on in the ENISA survey around SBOM and state of the art, just into the chat there if people want to go fill that in and contribute. So we had a question. It came originally from Andre. Andre has pasted it into the chat there. Another question to audience: for realistic scenario which could happen. Imagine supplier made design mistake choosing software component which is having inherent vulnerabilities, and he will not pass CRA certification. Fixing is affecting their product time to market, and there will be necessary significant reworking effort. Then will be there like possibility like CRA process exceptions to postpone fixes to next product release? So I think what the question there is if you inherited a software package upstream, it turns out there's a vulnerability in it, can you wait till the next release of the product before fixing it?
You are aware, you have a due diligence, and in your due diligence, you need to make sure that you select a component with your criteria. Can be CE mark, not CE mark, and so on. But you need to evaluate what is the risk of your product, and you need to make a conscious decision. I didn't see in the law any exception, so that's it. So this will be my answer. So you need to have a risk-based decision approach. You need to make sure if that vulnerability has impact on your product, can be exploited, and what is the impact of your exploitation. And you need to have all this documented and having your due diligence in place. So yeah, the answer is depends.
Yeah. It's worth noting there were other projects funded under the same call that we were funded. There is a project called Octet, which is focusing on open source. So a big part of what people inherit is open source in terms of libraries. Their project is setting up a process where you can validate the CRA conformity of open source projects in a central place. They're trying to build a central kind of platform that you can go there. So that will really, really help. So there's also this thought about the composition approach. So when you're taking in the libraries, yes, not just SBOM, but if you've got static code analysis tools, you should be looking, am I inheriting, vulnerable libraries?
But I think that the main criteria is that if it's exploitable, no, because it's already there. If it's not exploitable, it's something that maybe you don't use, maybe that you need to remove. You can also postpone some of this, but everything needs to be driven by a risk-based approach and by documented decision. So that's it. So this is the reason why there is a proportionality. It's not that all the vulnerability are not born the same. So it doesn't mean that you have a vulnerability and then that can be exploitable or have an impact. You need to do your due diligence.
Right. Yeah, this is one we talked about earlier, Angelo. So Fujiwara asks, what is a criteria whether vulnerability, the difference between an exploited vulnerability and an exploitable vulnerability, those two sort of concepts.
Yeah, so exploitable is that there is a chance to be exploitable and is not exploited. Exploited is the action that this is more related to the fact that is more an English term that they say.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I missed a piece on the end there, Angelo. And then what's the criteria to report to ENISA? Sorry, that was the second part of the question I missed.
Okay, so I don't see the list. So the criteria are listed into the obligation of reporting of CRA. We will not include it in the vulnerability handling. It's something separated. I think that there will be guidance from the European Commission, from ENISA, and the single reporting platform is still to be implemented and will go live, I guess, in September 2026, so or around that time. And so you need just to look at what will happen. But what I can suggest to the manufacturer, don't wait last minute, prepare, have all the process to identify vulnerability in place, to intake vulnerability or your software update mechanism in place, and so don't wait until the last minute.
Question from Seismon. Can you explain when the single reporting platform will become operational? How will it work in practice for manufacturers, and whether you can already share a bit more detail about it?
I think that ENISA can answer better than me, since they are following that. So I really can't think. I need to.
I can maybe add a small bit of detail there, because we were at a meeting with ENISA. I don't know when it will become operational, but what they were saying was that you have the option to report to your national CSIRT authority or to ENISA. So when you report to your national CSIRT, they take the work or the obligation on to pass that on to ENISA. So if your national body already has a platform, you can just use that. That's fine. Or if ENISA comes out ahead of time and your national body don't have a platform, you can just use the single reporting platform. I believe it will have some kind of an API, so it allows platforms like Testra, for example, to integrate with it, which would be great, to have some way just to press a button and it takes care of all of the upwards kind of reporting.
Absolutely, and I think that the delay in implementation on NIS2 is not helping, because each member state needs to have the contact point, the CSIRT in place, but you should be able to report it to the nation with that. There should be at least an email where you can contact or to report to ENISA, even by mail if until we have the single reporting platform. But of course, totally right. Thank you, Connor.
Yeah. So another question from Andre. Third, my question: will there be in place some pen testing methodology, for instance, fuzzing methods in place for CRA purposes?
In the harmonized standard, what we are writing, we are not telling you what to do. So there is a test plan. The manufacturer needs to have a risk-based approach, defining what are the level of activity and the deepness of the activity. Because even fuzz testing, you can have black box, you can have white box, you can have code level. We will not go to the details. The manufacturer that has their product, they know which detail they need to go based on the criticality of the product. So from what we are doing, we are not going to the details. If there will be some guidance done by the Commission or somebody else or ENISA, it will be welcome, but I didn't hear about that so far.
Right. Question from Jones. Which technical channel or mechanism does the CRA mandate NISA to establish and manufacturers to use for the notification of actively exploited vulnerabilities? So I think that's the single reporting platform, Angelo, is it? Yeah.
Absolutely, we already covered, and they're developing it. To be honest, there was a funding of 11 million, 12 million, and there is a company that is working on, and everything is under the direction of ENISA. So yeah, they are the best channel to give answer to this.
Yeah, and there was a comment from Andre, which I agree with, just talking about the realities, you know, of a manufacturer and how to deal with these things. I'd echo Moreno's point about the early adopter program. So these are the things that we want to work through with manufacturers, what will work in practice. So we have a lot of, from the regulation and then from the standards, we have frameworks to work within, but established norms, best practice, they're not going to come from those frameworks. We'll need to establish them, you know, based on probably industry and sectors. So, you know, there'll be difference. If you're pure software, pushing out a patch is a lot easier. If you've built an entire OT platform that's running, you know, good example, we have a very, very big milk processing factory in Ireland. It processes about 1 billion litres of milk a year. You can't pour milk down the sink, was what the CISO said to me. So he said, if we're down, if our plant shuts down, we've an environmental catastrophe because we can't get rid of the milk and cows have to be milked. And I didn't even think of that. So there's an industry where you can't turn the factory off. It has to stay on all the time. So how would you deal with you know, issues there? So there's sort of some of the practicalities and use cases we want to work through, and then to circulate them back out to the community. We do have a few more questions, and I know we're running very close on time. Is the expert group expected to provide a template for vulnerability reports? That's from Corey.
The expert group, I know the expert group is working on it. So regarding the remote data processing meetings, the frequent asked questions, and so on. I didn't hear that they are working on that so far. So on the template for vulnerability, but we discussed in our last meeting of Sensenec, we were with Stephen Zimmerman that suggested this, and we will take in consideration, and we will see how after the inquiry if we can put together some templates starting from the vulnerability disclosure policy, but still is not defined, is not written in paper. But yeah, so we will try to do our best.
Yeah, question from Katya. Would this publication include a clear definition of exploitable vulnerability? Is it correct to claim that this concept does not mean every vulnerability, but the relevant ones for the TOE, the target of evaluation? What could a provider do if they offered to address only critical vulnerabilities at the last phase of the life cycle of the product?
I think that there is a definition in CRA in the legal text already about exploitable, active exploitable, and so on. Of course, not all the vulnerability are born the same, like I said before. It's really depending. So if you have an active vulnerability on a component that is not called in your product, is something that is not affecting your product. So the important thing is how these affect negatively your product. And so you really need to consider this factor and the reasonable foreseeable use of your product and the intended use of your product and how that vulnerability is impacting your product itself. Yeah.
Right. And I think we'll take 2 more questions. We got a very good question in from Michael in the chat. But from Simona, is threat modeling going to become a mandatory process in the software development lifecycle? Is there any obligation to publish the models? And if yes, where?
Yeah, so I think that there's also this line in terms of publishing the threat model. So there is no mandate to have a threat model, but there is the PT1, that there is the 40,000-1-2 that is mentioning also threat modeling as an activity to do risk assessment. Because what is the objective of the risk assessment? To enumerate the risk.
Yeah.
You can do using threat modeling activities, Stride and others. You can use other methods. You can have a catalog of threats. You can have every way to do it. So we don't prescribe what is the way to do it, but usually threat model is the way to go for checking the gap between your security design and where you need to go with the regulation, with the security control, and with your risk and threats. But there is no obligation to publish, no obligation to do this, because they are internal documentation and can be part of the work that you are doing for the security design of your product. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing to say is, one thing we're discussing as part of the early adopters program, but just more broadly, not so much the threat modeling, but if you've created a model of your product and you're a component manufacturer and you sell that downstream, it could be very useful to give that machine readable decomposition of your product to your customers, so that they can then use that for threat modeling if it's already, they don't have to do the work to decompose.
You mean the data flow, because usually there is a data flow model and an abstraction of your product. Yeah,
exactly.
And I think that maybe this can be done by open source, because open source can have that and then can give more insight. And also for as BOM, maybe they can publish and make it more easily accessible. And so, but this is
not mandatory, though. I think that's the point, Angelo. Yeah, best practice and good practice and community help would. A question from Michael: reporting obligations will be effective September 11, 2026. This is Article 14. This does not, to my understanding, require manufacturers to actually fix the vulnerability, just the reporting. The fixing is mandated through Annex 1, Part 2 requirements. What's your view on this technicality? What do you suggest manufacturers do to best approach this ambiguity?
Yeah, I think that even if it's not enforced, you are right, it's not enforced, because what is active is only that reporting obligation. But I would really challenge anybody knows that there is a critical exploit of vulnerability, they don't fix it, because it's not a law, because there is impact on your image, on news. So I think that it's not enforced, but I think that it's in their interest to fix it if it becomes even public, that vulnerability. My view is that you are not forced, but maybe it's better that you do it.
So, yeah. And this is maybe where the interplay between NIS2 and DORA and the CRA comes. So speaking to people, who are operating essential services, particularly in financial services, they're mandating, or they're asking for attestations prior to the CRA coming into full effect as part of their procurement process. So they're saying, okay, we have frameworks and a standard and something to adhere to now. We would like our manufacturers and the products we buy to meet this mark. So yeah, I think certainly for those sectors and industries, that's possibly coming through the procurement processes. Yeah. Great. I think we're at just a tiny bit over time, but I thought some of those questions were excellent and well worth staying on. So thank you to Angelo, and I'll hand back to Andrea now just to wrap up the webinar for us.
Thank you everyone for this engaging conversation. We had a lot of questions, important ones. I will end this webinar with few steps that will help you in this journey with CRA. As I said earlier, you will receive this presentation, and also the recording of the webinar will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, and we'll make a post on LinkedIn about it. So make sure that you follow us on LinkedIn so you see all these things. So to wrap up, here are a few practical steps you can take right after this webinar. First, we recommend you to complete the CRA readiness assessment. This will give you a personalized report outlining your current status and will provide you with a step-by-step CRA guide. If you're an SME, you can request the code to the email Darius put earlier in the chat, and it's also in the presentation. Secondly, consider joining the early adopter program that Moreno told us about. You will get access to an AI compliance platform and help its development with real-world input. And you can register to this directly on the link attached. Also, feel free to explore more on the project website, and as I said, to follow us on LinkedIn, because we share there all the updates, upcoming events, and all these kind of things. We will also have one more webinar until this year ends, and we are also waiting for you to join us there as well. Okay, thank you. I think it was a very useful conversation. Thank you, Moreno, Angelo, and Connor for your input, and thanks everyone for your time. See you at the next events. Bye bye.
Thank you all, and thank you for the great question. Bye.
Thank you, Angelo.